the University Racing Club podcast, proudly sponsored by EventSec Limited, your best solution for event security and stewarding. Welcome to the first episode of the University Racing Club podcast. For those of you that don't know, we're offering racehorse ownership to students for a one-off payment of just £19.99 for the season. Beau Gosse, who's currently in training with Ollie Greenhill and Josh Guerrero down at Stockton Hall Farms, is building up to his next run, and we cannot wait to get him out. This first episode promises to be an absolute cracker. We've got the brilliant Ash Symonds on, but before then, we're going to have a quick chat to joint trainer Josh about how well Beau Gosse is doing at home. Josh, good morning, how are you?
Morning, all good, thank you.
Excellent. So Beau Gosse is entered next week at Hereford and Southall. What's the plan really for next Tuesday?
Hoping to run early next week. We've decided to go over fences just because he does jump fences very well. He seems very straightforward and a very good jumper. So with him being a 4-year-old, he can take advantage of a massive weight allowance against older horses in a chase. So effectively he's going to be running with 14-15 pound less on his back over fences, which we'd like to think he could be very competitive off. He scored very well over fences this morning. He's been working really well. He does seem to have come to hand recently, so hoping to run Tuesday somewhere. Whether 2 miles or 2.5, I'm still not 100% decided. I think we may just see which race looks weaker, to be honest, and go for that.
Ideal. That's ideal. And is there any ground issues now that the rain's sort of come? I saw it's still good at Hereford. Is that an issue, or is the rain still going to fall?
No, I don't think so. I think he seems pretty straightforward. I don't think he'd want it too soft. I don't think he'd want it really deep. He's not a massive, big, strong horse. He's actually a bit more petite and a bit more athletic looking type. So I think nicer ground, as in not too deep, would be better for him. And especially only being a 4-year-old, it might be quite as strong as those older horses. So on better ground won't be quite as much emphasis on strength and stamina.
Ideal. Well, look, Josh, thanks very much for joining today, and looking forward to next week.
No problem, yeah. See you next week.
Well, great to hear from Josh, giving us an update about Beau Gosse ahead of his second run for the club next week. As he said, he's a brilliant jumper, travels well, and everyone at the yard feels like he's come into his own recently. So we're really looking forward to getting him out next week, and with that weight allowance, it's going to be a very exciting day. So yeah, all systems go for Tuesday. Now moving on to our special guest, it is great to have the esteemed racing journalist Ash Symonds on. Ash, how are you doing?
Esteemed, that's a nice word. Yeah, I'm good, thank you very much. Thank you for having me on. We're in a great part of the season, and I'm a dual-purpose man for jumps and flat, but I say jumps are definitely where my heart's at, and we are really in quite an exciting part of the season where most of the dreams are still alive. So let's hope it continues.
Ideal. And I saw the other day you've been nominated for the Horse Racing Media Content Award. That must be pretty exciting.
Yeah, look, it is. I've been to the HWPAs before, and I've been a member for a couple of years. And awards don't define someone, but it's the content that I've been putting out on social media is something I've worked reasonably hard on over the last 4 or so years now, building my profile up from pretty much scratch. So it's nice to be recognised as sort of 4 people who are putting in some really hard work. I'm nominated against some great people, and it's the inaugural content award of the HWPA. So I am excited to see what happens, but I'm just honoured to be nominated in the first place.
Yeah, I do. I mean, fingers crossed. Yeah, hopefully you get over the line. And talking about that early season, how have you found the last couple months? I saw you did some great content at the November meeting at Cheltenham. You've been up north recently. How have you found it's been going so far?
Yeah, look, it's obviously with any jump season, especially sort of in the times that we are now, with a much bigger emphasis on horse welfare and the ground being something that maybe we've had slightly better ground starts of the season in the last couple of years than we have maybe sort of 10 or 15 years ago. It has been a slow enough start, but I think the November meeting was really, really good. So I thought, I really enjoyed a lot of the races, and I took quite a lot of things out of the meeting, like, Le de Sud probably impressed me the most, I'd say, in the Schleur Chase. I hadn't really given him much thought as a Grade 1 horse up until now, and I thought he was very good. I thought the November meeting, as much as Chepstow in October is the real, it's sort of the ultras start for the jump season. I think you get to see your first sort of big type of horse, especially in the UK, and some Irish contenders like July Flower came over. They all happen at the November meeting, so it was really, really good. I really enjoyed the meeting. It was nice to be sort of doing some more journalism-based bits that I have probably been lacking on doing over the last sort of month or so. It was nice to get stuck in and get my hands dirty, and it was a good meeting. And I just think it's now ramping up nicely, the jump season. So hopefully the Betfair Chase weekend and the Coral Gold Cup meeting afterwards can carry on with that trend.
Yeah, exactly. And as you say, it was a brilliant meeting. I mean, all the rain that came down, it was a bit, is this going to go ahead? But luckily they got away with it. And sort of talking about the changes that they made at Cheltenham, did you notice that when you were there? What Guy Lavender's done and how the whole experience has been bettered, for the race goer.
Yeah, like I say, I probably first had a look at the changes December meeting last year. I think they brought in new sort of areas that you could take up drinks. It wasn't the full revised terms which they've got now, but I found that really, really pleasing because I had a full social day probably the last summer meeting where I wasn't really focusing too much on work and I was having a good time with mates, and it was nice just to not be forced to have to race in between, race from watching the race to the bar, getting a drink, almost sort of not downing it as such, but drinking it quite quickly so you can get out, get a bet on, get into a nice position to watch the race. And now I think being able to take your drinks pretty much anywhere on the race course in the club enclosure is really, really just an enjoyable experience. Other bits they've done, like they've taken, actually, to be fair, they said they were doing lots of new bar and food stalls. Maybe on the food side of things, they've taken a few away from above the parade ring, which I thought was, they used to have like loads, like a pizza and a steak van and stuff, and they've taken them away. I don't know if they put them somewhere else, but I suppose that makes the area a bit bigger. And I think the one thing they have done really nicely, they've made a couple of the old bars in the old stands, the press review bar.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really nice touch. It's a really good place, and it's just a nice area to be. So I think on the whole, for the punter, some of the changes they brought in have been really positive.
Yeah, and looking forward ahead to March, it's the pinnacle of the jump season, isn't it? So it's got to be bang on when it gets around. And that's let's sort of moving on to the big guns. I saw Lou Lamber's chase, novice chase the other day. How would you think that rates against the likes of Kopek de Boards, who ran over in Ireland? I mean, they're two serious horses who are going down the Arkle route. I mean, how do you think they're going to fare when it gets to March?
Yeah, look, first of all, they were two brilliant chase debuts. You can't really poke too many holes in either of them. I suppose with Lambert, and I'm not the first person to say this, and I certainly won't be the last, I thought he jumped not too much like a 2-miler. I think he jumped like a horse who would appreciate a trip in time. And that's not necessarily a detriment to the horse in regards to potentially having a campaign over the Arkle this season, because, Sprinter Sacre always looked like a horse who could potentially get further in time. He never really tried it too much kind of thing. But Shishkin, when he was running over 2 miles from the Kenson as well, he always looked like a horse who was like, wow, what could he do in 3 miles? But then he ended up, going so well in these Grade 1s over 2 miles. And then they eventually stepped him up, and he was... he had his sort of second life, really, in 3 miles, and before he sadly lost him too soon. So Lalamba sort of fits that kind of mould, I'd say. I suppose there is maybe a small question mark you'd have to have just regarding the actual full strength of his form in regards to his career, because he's come from the juvenile hurdling season last year where he was beaten by 100-to-1 shot Poneros in the Triumph, and Eastern Doc was in behind, and I suppose we don't know quite how good the juveniles are, but I think there were obviously positive signs. He's obviously a very, very nice horse. I thought of the two chasing debuts, I was probably sweeter on Kopek de Boards.
Yeah.
I just thought he was bomb-proof, to be honest. I thought he looked really, really good, and sort of the little niggles that he had over his hurdles, maybe getting in too tight and not respecting his hurdles last season, that looked to be all but gone over fences. He gave them plenty of respect and jumped them almost as a second nature. I thought it was a really good video from irishracing.com, filmed by Niall, who I know well, who sort of got the owner's reactions. I thought it was a really, really good piece of content, and it just adds to the theatre of that horse. I think he's going to take some whacking in the Arkle division, to be honest with you. But I think it'd be very interesting if Lalamba and Kopek de Boards meet. If you were to nail me down to one right now, if there was a race going on tomorrow between the two, I'd say that Kopek de Boards would be shorter in the market, and I'd say I'd probably be siding with it.
Yeah, and I thought the most impressive part was when Paul asked him to lengthen, coming to two out. I thought he just picked up the bridle and just, easily swatted aside, lovely Hurling, who was a 145 rated hurdler, by 13 lengths. It was something that you kind of just sit up and go, wow, that was pretty impressive.
100%, and I thought I completely agree. The way he sort of he didn't even ask. He sort of just gave him a little tap, a little nudge, and he just went. Like I was maybe a small doubter about him as form wise from last year, just saying, I don't know what he's speaking. I think, but you have to sort of take that away at some stage and have a look and just use your eyes and go, geez, that was a performance. So yeah, I was quite smitten by him, to be honest.
Yeah, and moving on to Saturday. Obviously, Haydock, an unbelievable card. Declarations came out this morning. But the Betfair Chase, obviously, the highlight. Soft ground again, maybe. Hasn't been raining too much up it, but you just never know with this place. Obviously, Grey Dawning, second in it last year, won the Turners at the 24 Festival. I'm not convinced that Grey Dawning stays, especially in a slog. And, got outstayed by Royal Pagaille, who's won this race twice before, comes back again. The Venetia Williams yard, 0 from 30 in the last 14 days is there. Is worry about form. Handstands, obviously, Ben Pauling. I'm not sure it's such an open renewal. And then Haiti Couleurs, who I've got to say is probably the most likeable horse in training. I think just an absolute out-and-out warrior. I don't know. I think it's a very open race, to be honest.
I agree. I saw some people sort of maybe crabbing Haiti Couleurs for the track, maybe saying that he would like Haydock. I don't really see the argument too much behind that. I think it will turn into a staying test. They had 15 mil, I think, earlier in the week. I think they've got a pretty dry week, and then Saturday when that rolls around, I think they're going to get rain during racing, which that could turn it to any sort of type of soft ground. And I do think it might just turn into a staying test. He's an Irish national winner, he's a national and chase winner. He will stay. He will keep going on. And the way he sort of won over hurdles first time out when he was probably 85% fit, very impressive off marker 145 over hurdles. So you have to give him respect. I see your angle behind Grey Dawning. I think maybe last year's ground was very, very heavy, and we won't get that. As much as we will get soft ground this year, we won't get that level of heaviness. And maybe he got to the front a touch too soon. The mistake at the last was notable, and he was jogging on the spot a little bit after the last. But I think with a bit more rhythm over the fence, I think he might have just held on. And with slightly softer ground, I think he'll be a different animal. I really respect him in the top market. I kind of just have him as the winner. But yeah. I really like Handstands. I think he's unexposed over 3 miles. They stepped him up in trip for Aintree, and he sort of got taken out of the race basically when Dancing City fell. I think Ben Pauling's always had this horse in mind as a 3 miler, and he sort of compares the two, Jukebox Man and Handstands. And he says that if Handstands ran the King George, he'd be sort of left behind after 4 fences. He's not a quick horse; he's a proper stayer. Where the Jukebox Man has a bit of class, a bit of speed about him. So I think the way he speaks about that regarding Handstands, he's a Grade 1 winner. Over fences, beating Django Bears, won an article. To be honest, if I was having a bet, I think Grey Dawn is really quite a knocking favourite, to be honest. But if I was having a bet, and I have had a bet, I've had a bet on Handstands because I think he's a value play, and I'm more than happy to take a chance on a horse who maybe not so much, but probably has a bit less, bit more to reveal to the crowd as such. So yeah, I think Handstands got a chance.
Sort of less exposed than the others, yeah. And it's his first proper test, you could say, against the older horse as well. I know he won the Scilly Isles, beat Django Bay, who won the Arkle, but this feels like it's a proper, his first sort of heavyweight bout. Look, it'll be exciting.
And he's race fit as well, which I think is key in a lot of races, especially if it turns testing ground. He is race fit. His Colin Parker run wasn't a bad run, and Ollie Murphy thinks a lot of Resplendent Grey for the Coral Gold Cup. So I think there are enough positives to make you think that 13-2 or 7-1, whatever price he is workable. Yeah,
I think it'll be a fascinating race, and I think also going forward, it'll be interesting to see who comes out of it best. Also looking to Sunday, obviously the John Durkan, which is an absolute early season highlight for me. I think it's just a great race, always packed with quality. Sadly, no Galopin de Champs, but obviously Factor Far reopposes who won it last year. Gaelic Warrior, who's just a supremely talented horse, and the ever consistent Fast or Slow. Where do you see that sort of race going?
Look, I think it's really, as a punting point, I think it's very tricky because it always is a kind of interesting race because it's the natural starting point for all these potential Gold Cup horses. Yeah, there's over 2.5 Punchestown can turn into a touch of a speed test sometimes. It's really it's a nice introduction without it being the optimal conditions for a lot of horses in the race. It may come back to bite me, but I think Fast or Slow, and I know the way you're thinking, will probably need it more than the two Willie Mullins hot pots.
Yeah.
I know the way you're thinking does go on for his first run of the season. That's notable. You've got to remember he was beaten 37 lengths in this race last year, drifted like a barge in the market. He comes into this race with a different profile, so it's not exactly that the horse can do the same. He can't go off 22-1, be beaten 30 lengths as the Gold Cup winner. He just can't. Last year when he came into John Durkan, he was a Kim Muir winner and a Grade 1 Novice Chase winner. He can slightly go a little bit more under the radar if he gets lapped, whereas a Gold Cup winner, you just can't.
Yeah.
I think he will need it, and Cromwell's stable are probably not in the greatest form. Fast or Slow, I watched a video of Martin Braswell the other day, and he said that we're going to get him fit enough to run, kind of thing, which I think is enough to make you want to take him on. I think they'll get him primed for the King George. So it's Gaelic Warrior Factor File. It's difficult. I'd almost chance Gaelic Warrior. He's a very, very classy horse. He's probably got a touch speed on Factor File, having ran over 2 miles, and he's still unexposed over these sort of staying type trips or staying races. He may need it, but I probably won't be having a bet in the race. I just want to watch it from a betting perspective. But I think if you are listening in and you're looking at a race, I'd have it between those two Willie Mullins horses. And I do find it really hard to split them. I know they're very short. Well, not very short, but they are the top 2 in the market. So it's not really rocket science what I'm telling you. But I think there's theory behind why I'm saying the top 2 are, I think clear, if I know the way you're thinking, the Fast or Slow on this day.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, as you say, I know the way you're thinking will just be, and Fast or Slow. It's tricky to get a horse, properly wound up when their target is down the line in March. So I guess it's sort of just going around that. Also looking forward to next weekend, the Fighting Fifth at Newcastle, which is a great introduction for the champion hurdle scene. The Constitution Hill versus the New Line. I saw you actually speaking to Dan Skelton the other day. What was he saying about the New Line?
Yeah, it was a very interesting chat, really, because they did a big schooling day at Worcester maybe a month ago now. They took, I think, yards from all over the country to their horses there. I think they had 180 horses schooling at Worcester, which was a fantastic day and really should be an initiative that gets applauded. Dan took the New Line, I think, and Nick Jensen took Constitution Hill. And, we saw in the Newbury Gallop the other day, Constitution Hill looked fine. Dan said that the way he went at Worcester, he looked good. I think... Look, I don't want to get into the sort of the whole Constitution Hill debate, but I think if Constitution Hill turns up, I think he wins. I think we might just be forgetting a small amount at just how classy this horse is. The end of last season was a bit of it wasn't a bit of a mess, it was a complete mess. He fell in the champion hurdle when trying to jump it too long. He fell in the H hurdle when maybe just not getting sighted at the hurdle in time by Nico de Boinville, and then Punchestown, just complete write-off, didn't want to go, kind of thing. I think Nicky Henson wouldn't be sending him to the race if he was showing the same signs of sort of like Shishkin a couple of years ago when he didn't want to start the race, kind of thing. Don't think he'd be doing that. He'd be just setting him up for embarrassment, both for Nicky Henson, both for Michael Buckley, both for the horse. I think the New Line, he's got speed, but he took plenty of time to get past the yellow clay and final demand in the turners, which looked like a bit of a staying test in the end. I think Dan Skelton really appreciates the fact that the New Line is no shoe-in this race. And I think when Dan's talking like that, he's been very reasonable. So, look, I think if Willie Mullins turns around, it's going to be very interesting, but I'd be happy to take him on. And to be honest, I'll probably be back in Constitution Hill in the Fighting Fifth.
Yeah, and there's been a few rumours, and obviously there'll be rumours about Amsterdam and how he's working at home. And whether that's sort of impacted where Lossiemouth is going this weekend. But that's the way the Mullins stable works. The power that they have, it's chopping and changing. But I think it's going to be a fascinating race. I love Constitution Hill, as you say. I think if he gets to anywhere, if he gets back to his best, he is pretty much unbeatable on his day. And I think I've backed him for the champion hurdle in March. I fully think that if anyone can do it, it's Nicky, as shown with Sprinter Sacra. He said that he's properly gone through every single part of Constitution Hill and built him back up again. So, look, I mean, obviously we're taking his word for it, but he is, one of the best trainers of all time, and let's hope that he really is back to his best, because he is just a brilliant horse on his day.
100%.
And finally, just to finish up, 3 horses to follow for the season from you, either from what you've heard from trainers, what you've seen in the early season. Just three to follow through the season.
Yeah, like I suppose you almost talked about so many horses in the start of the season, you forget who you put up. I've got a bit of recency bias here, so I'll chuck up a couple. There's one horse called Undue Royal, spelled UNJEU space Royal. It's a horse trained by Tom Lacey, ran at Chepstow behind Frontier Prince in October, was running a really, really nice race, and then just got completely taken out of the race by I think it was a faller or an unseat, and that was race over from there, really. He's got well, the last time I checked, he had a couple of entries this weekend. He had an entry for Ascot in an introductory hurdle, and he had an entry, I think, for Huntingdon. I think off the top of my head, I could have got this wrong. I think he's been declared for Huntingdon for a maiden or novice hurdle there. I think he's got a very, very interesting profile. He could even be popping up in this race on the weekend at a massive price and going and winning.
Yeah.
He's not. He could be, having a nice couple of educational runs and being handicapped for later in the season. But I think Tom Lacey and Stan Shepherd think enough about the horse to maybe have this horse pop up at a bit of a price. So Undue Royal is definitely a horse to follow for this season. One that ran at Cheltenham on, I think it was the Friday of the November meeting. Jack Hyde finished second in the just in the normal handicap hurdle. He's just a horse who's well handicapped. They tried him in the Persian War at the start of the season, ran an okay race. He's just been a horse who's been well handicapped off a mark in the mid-120s for a long time. Whether they stick to hurdles and keep using his mark, I don't know, but they might go over fences and try running in a novice limited handicap chase, something like that. But he's definitely a horse to follow because he's well handicapped.
Yeah.
And I probably have to keep the faith with the Kemble Brewery. I know
Okay.
he's well handicapped for Kim Bailey and Matt Nichols. It was a bit of a shocker of a run at Chepstow last time out, first time of fences. Don't think he was given maybe the best ride. He was always in behind horses, never really got a clear sight of the fences. Whether they try him over fences again, I don't know, but they might bring him back to hurdles if he just chucks his toys out of the pram again. Would like to see him back on the track. He had a bit of a fall, but I do think the Kemble Brewery, and I know the Kemble Brewery is well handicapped by probably about £15. It's just whether he shows up on the track. So he's definitely a horse who's going to pop up in a big handicap at some stage this season. So the Kemble Brewery, Jack Hyde, and Undue Royal are sort of 3 horses to follow off the beaten track.
Excellent. Well, everyone put those in your tracker for sure. Well, Ash, look, thanks so much for joining today. It's been great to chat to you. And best of luck for the season, really. I hope it all goes well for you. Obviously, everyone follow on your Twitter. Your Twitter's Ash Symonds Journalism.
A Symonds Journo. And yeah, look, thank you very much for having me on. Really appreciate it. Anytime chatting horse racing is a good time. So thank you very much for inviting me on, and it's been a real pleasure. And I'll be more than happy to come back.
Thanks, Ash. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Well, there we have it. The first episode of the University Racing Club podcast. It was great to speak to Ash, get him on, talk about the big guns this season, how the early season's been going, and how we're looking forward to this weekend with a stellar card at Haydock and some brilliant supporting races over in Ireland. It's also such an exciting time for the club and Beau Gosse. He'll be out on Tuesday, whether that be at Hereford or Southwell. We can't wait to get as many members down there as possible, and it's just going to be a brilliant day. So excited for him to run over fences for the first time in England. Still plenty of time for those that want to get involved. £19.99 one-off payment. Come support your horse, whether that be on Tuesday or just throughout the season. Thanks everyone for listening, and look forward to seeing you for the next episode.